Welcome to Back in Crime.
This holiday season, we're not unwrapping gifts, we're unwrapping crimes.
From the shadows of history to the cold files of the FBI, we're pulling back the ribbon on mysteries that haunted Christmas past.
I'm Todd Hiles, retired U.S. Secret Service agent.
And I'm Stewart Fillmore, retired FBI agent. Together, we're the Texas Crime Travelers.
In this special series, we'll take you under the crime scene tape of cases that shocked communities and baffled investigators during Christmas.
Stories of greed, betrayal, and desperation, wrapped in tinsel, but dripping with suspense.
So pour yourself some eggnog, lock the doors, and join us.
This is Crimemas, Volume 1.
Since it's Christmas season, you know what that means, Stewart.
Crimemas?
Exactly.
It's actually Crimemas season, Todd.
Yes.
Come on.
It's time for another Crimemas episode here on Back in Crime. And tonight we're diving into one of the greatest holiday debates of all time, and that is what really makes the best Christmas movie.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's a lot of great Christmas movies out there, you know.
But does a Christmas movie have to take place on Christmas? Does it get released at Christmas time?
Yeah, because we've had now a couple of episodes on our Christmas season, and we're talking about was Die Hard a Christmas movie, and I was shocked to learn that that movie was actually released in July.
Right.
But I would have thought that would have been a Christmas because in the movie it's set at Christmas time and during a Christmas party.
Yeah.
That would have been released at Christmas, but it was a summer release movie. So, man, what do I know?
and it involves Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And some of the on the soundtrack, there's Christmas songs on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
But when we start talking about movies and what makes Christmas movies and good movies, let's just kind of rewind that movie reel for a second.
Okay.
Because behind the glittering lights of Hollywood, a lot of times the FBI was pulling strings in ways that most people never knew.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the year, the 1940s.
Okay, 1940. So,
and if you remember, America's gripped by fear, the Cold War.
Okay, so this is after World War II. So now we found out that the Russians got the bomb and everything, and so this is when the start of the Cold War.
Yeah. Right, and this Cold War is brewing, and there's a lot of I would say whispers of communism.
Sure.
That are in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And so Hollywood is under suspicion.
Well, this is what when people hear about McCarthyism, this is one of the things that Senator Joseph McCarthy had originally alleged that there were the State Department was infiltrated by communists and that Hollywood was, and there ends up being a series of hearings about that.
And who's at the center of all that?
Well, I mean, the FBI's
the director. The
sure.
director of the FBI.
Yeah.
At the time was J. Edgar Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover. Longtime director from, I think, 1924 up until 1972.
Right. And so when I said that, he was pulling strings in Hollywood, because at that time, Hollywood's making movies that have FBI agents in there.
Yeah, and that was a big part of how Hoover, built the FBI brand. Was through movies that were, effectively propaganda that made the G-Man image, look like, he's the invincible superhero.
Right. And if they were going to put an FBI agent into a movie, then that agent had to be portrayed as being competent, courageous,
big time.
And brave.
Yep.
So Hoover's just really not watching these movies. He's shaping them.
He's shaping them, exactly, and that shapes public opinion.
And we know from, going back into FBI files that Hoover has a lot of meetings with Hollywood directors.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
At one point, it's reported that a lot of movie and TV scripts have to be reviewed
by Hoover. Yeah.
By Hoover himself or agents from the Los Angeles field office.
Yep.
Hoover wants any FBI character written in a script. I mean, he's got to shine like a hero.
Exactly. He's got to look like a leading man. All these things that Hoover required.
Right. And showing them in favorable light. And this is, just what you had mentioned. This really is FBI propaganda.
Yeah.
But it's this recruiting tool.
It is.
He's going to get good people
Exactly.
that want to be FBI
I mean,
agents.
when we say propaganda, I mean, for the most part, I think people associate that as a negative thing, and many times it is, especially if if it's done for evil intent. And many people might argue that Hoover was an evil guy. I don't think he was an evil guy. I think he was ambitious, certainly an ambitious man that certainly wanted power, and was not above using certain tools to achieve that. And one of them was there's no doubt, was political blackmail. I mean, he had dirt on everybody in town, and he wasn't shy about using it if it threatened, if there was some threat to his power or his position. But on the other hand, another name for propaganda is just marketing.
Right, exactly.
Right? And so he wanted to build, a certain image. And I will say, having spent almost 30 years in the FBI, that the reality is for the most part, that image is basically true. I mean, not everybody is a leading man, has leading man good looks and all that, but for the most part, honest, hardworking people, that's who it was. And
Right.
And I know personally that's what I always found that drew me about the FBI was that that's we've done another episode, a previous episode on the Lone Ranger, and the values that the Lone Ranger instilled. Well, the FBI kind of had that Hoover's propaganda, if you will, kind of sold that same image of the good guy always solves the case. He lives by morals and values and things. And for the most part, that's true. That was what was true. But the FBI is filled with human beings, and human beings are imperfect. And yes, that we're always going to fall short of high ideals. But so when I say propaganda, that's what I mean. He was really just trying to build an image, and that image did attract people that I think had good intentions.
Right. And again, he wants a little bit of accuracy in it, that the FBI are good people, but maybe at times he took it too far to where he was controlling.
Yes.
He controlled that.
Right.
And again, this is the 1930s, 1940s, the 50s. It sounds wild that the FBI had this control over making
had that
movies.
much power that really a Hollywood studio would
listen
basically
to it, the director of the FBI.
Yeah, would not put a film out that didn't have J. Edgar Hoover's seal of approval, if it's going to focus somehow on the FBI.
But even to today, the official FBI website today will still say, if you are a producer or a writer or an author who wants to feature the FBI, contact the FBI because they'll work with you to create this portrayal.
And again, it's that propaganda, or I guess marketing, whatever. They just want to put forth a good image, and hopefully in real life they're also trying to live up and make that image real.
All right. So now again, let's go back to the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
We're here in the United States. We're in the Cold War, and there's this fear that communists are slowly creeping into American society.
Yes, and as I wasn't born until '63, but the Cold War was still well going on, when I was growing up, and I can tell you it was real. There's a movie called Red Dawn that I think came out in '85 or so. And the premise of the movie is that the Russians invade the United States, right? I honestly can tell you that movie scared me because it seemed like it was really real. And that's that mindset that we had growing up in the Cold War.
That it could happen.
Yeah, it may seem like maybe kind of silly or not serious now, but it was dead serious in those days.
And again, this idea that the communists were in our society, this led to the creation of the House Committee on Un-American Activities.
Right, yeah.
And this group was an investigative committee of the United States House of Representatives that's created to investigate activities or people that are disloyal to the United States.
Yes, and specifically, I think a big focus of that committee was looking into Hollywood.
Yeah, and communism.
Exactly. Yep. Were there communists involved in Hollywood as screenwriters and producers and directors and everything?
Because they felt that Hollywood was inserting propaganda into movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
And again, Hoover, the director of the FBI, he's aware of their findings of this committee. And many actors, directors, screenwriters at this time, a lot of them are under investigation of the FBI.
Oh, yeah.
And like you talked before, they kept these secret files on these people, and these were thick files on a lot of people. So along comes this movie, right? It begins filming on April 15th, 1946, and it finishes on July 27th, 1946.
Okay.
It has a planned release date in January of 1947.
Okay.
But the studio rushes it forward so it can be eligible for the American Awards of 1946.
You mean the Academy Awards?
Exactly. Academy Awards
Yeah. Okay.
in 1946.
Okay.
So on December 20th, 1946, it's premiered at the Globe Theater in New York City.
So again, that's a little before my time. So I don't know if going back to say the 1940s, if the studios, would have like big Christmas releases or summer releases, that might have come along later. But at this point, they're just releasing it to meet a deadline to be eligible for the Academy Awards.
Right.
Okay.
So again, released on December 20th, 1946.
Okay.
But here's the twist. Because when this movie premieres, sitting in the audience in the theater are FBI agents.
And not just as civilians who happen to be FBI agents. You're talking FBI agents on duty.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's kind of hard to imagine, but think about that. Over the last few episodes or the last few seasons, sometimes we've talked about being the duty agent of an office.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And usually the duty agent, you get that assignment for the entire week. And again, that includes you being the duty agent 24 hours a day.
That's right. Yep.
For that entire
Any
week.
call that comes in is yours. And
you got to handle it or investigate it.
Let me just take a second here to point this out, and I think it's in our intro where we talk about it, that you and I both in our careers as me, an FBI agent, and you as a Secret Service agent, we were street agents. We were the guys that actually went out and did the work. So a lot of times when folks see these guys on TV that were FBI assistant director this and deputy director that. Those guys at one time, I guess, were on the street, but for the most part, those folks in executive management spent very little time on the street, and so they didn't. Those guys didn't do complaint duty. They didn't deal with the day to day.
They weren't duty agents.
Phone calls and actually go out and look at this stuff.
So, again, here it is, a few days before Christmas. You're the duty agent, and the boss of the office instructs you to go to the Globe Theater and watch a movie and report back to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, okay.
Because Hoover thinks this movie is going to be communist propaganda.
Okay, all right.
So, picture this. You're there in that theater, 1940s. You're probably wearing a fedora. Right?
No doubt.
You're eating popcorn and you're taking notes on a film.
Yep.
And you've got to be thinking to yourself, man, being an FBI agent is the greatest job in the world. Because
they're actually paying me to sit here and watch a movie.
And eat popcorn. And I'm sure the government probably reimbursed you for the purchase of the popcorn.
Yeah. I actually drank a beer one time on duty that I actually put in a request to get reimbursed on when I was on. It was part of a surveillance, and who we were surveilling went into a strip club, and we had to go in there because I think we wanted to see who he was meeting with, as I recall. And so you're going to stand out like a sore thumb if you go into a strip club and you're not drinking a beer at least.
Right, exactly. So did they reimburse you? Did you?
They did, yeah.
I had an experience sort of like that too, I guess, that you would think was kind of weird. But one time the president was coming into a city just for a quick visit. Mm-hmm. And prior to the president landing in the city, there's this man and he makes some remark about he's going to go see the president speech because this guy wants his voice to be heard.
Okay.
This man is living out of a truck at the time, and in his possession in this truck is a rifle.
Yeah.
The people that hear him make this remark about wanting his voice to be heard,
Yeah.
they kind of viewed it as maybe it was a threat against the president. And again, we know it's a federal crime to threaten the president of the United States.
Right. Yeah.
We, as the Secret Service, we get involved in those threats. We investigate them.
Yep.
So now we go and we meet this man. And it's really not a threat. It's, but it's one of those things that he's on our radar now. The president's going to be, an hour or two away from visiting.
Right.
And so we kind of make this man an offer. And we just say, hey, if you want to forego seeing the president tonight, which it was public, he was invited to go see.
Sure, yeah.
Not invited, but he could go see.
Right.
So instead of doing that, we would give him an all-expense-paid evening with 2 Secret Service agents, and we're just going to hang out. And so, we offer to take him to a restaurant. We told him we could go see a movie.
Yeah.
We could go bowling, anything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So he takes our offer, but he says, you know what? Let's just go to a park, because in his truck he had some steaks in a cooler.
Oh, okay.
And he said,
like a tailgate party.
Yeah, he said, let me cook these steaks for you, and we'll just hang out in the park.
Okay.
And and I said, I'm gonna have to take a rain check on you cooking for us, but eventually he agrees to go to a restaurant.
Okay.
And we just sat at the restaurant with him, and we talked, and I remember it was eating pizza, and I remember at the time thinking like, wow, I'm getting paid to sit here and talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Later that evening, the president finished his speech, and he gets back on Air Force One, and he departs the city.
So really, you kept the president alive by eating pizza.
There you go.
So the least they can do is reimburse you for that.
Yeah, but once the plane was wheels up, Air Force One's wheels up, we just shook hands with that man, and we went our separate ways.
Yeah, yeah.
And so again, strange, but let's get back to this film. Okay, so the general release on this film is January 7th, 1947.
Right, but
it just comes out with mixed reviews.
Okay.
However, the Academy does give it 5 nominations.
Oh, okay.
For Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, and Best Film Editing and like sound recording, something like that.
Okay.
And so it'll actually win an Academy Award for what they call technical achievement, because in the making of this movie, they invented this new way to make snow fall on a movie set.
Okay. All right.
But here's kind of a twist to it, that the film's copyright expired in 1974.
Meaning that the movie would be in the public domain?
Yep. No renewal. The lack of renewal, it kind of just slips into public domain, which meant every TV station could now broadcast it for free.
As much as they wanted for free.
No royalties. They have no restrictions.
Sure.
And suddenly, every Christmas season, It's a Wonderful Life is on every channel.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Year after year after year.
Okay, so J. Edgar Hoover thinks that It's a Wonderful Life is going to be is communist propaganda. Wow. Okay. I'd love to hear the rationale for that.
And so this forgotten film is really transformed into a timeless classic movie.
Oh man,
because
I can't hardly watch the thing now without tearing up a little bit at the end.
And I think today it's probably one of the greatest films of all time.
I think so. I mean, it's definitely on my list.
And it's a holiday staple. Every Christmas.
Wow, I never knew that. I never knew that was because there are various things that got on Hoover's radar. One of them being a song in the 1960s called Louie Louie.
Right, exactly.
And that he had people study the lyrics of that, and I think they basically came to the conclusion no one could understand it, and so therefore,
mumbling. How
can it possibly be some kind of propaganda? I'm not surprised to hear that stuff, especially Hollywood movies in the 40s got on Hoover's radar, but not this one of all movies. Good Lord.
I guess, the movie really is a story of hope, redemption, and the power of community.
But mainly it stars Jimmy Stewart, who, by the time he made "It's a Wonderful Life," he was a pilot in World War II. And he wasn't like we talked in the Lone Ranger episode where Clayton Moore, the actor that played the Lone Ranger,
was making
training films. Jimmy Stewart was a B-17 pilot who did his 25 missions in combat.
Right.
And then when he got back, he stayed in the in the war. It was called the Army Air Corps. It was later changed to the Air Force. But he stayed in the Air Force. Maybe I know for many years past the World War II, and he never allowed the studio to use his war service to promote movies or to he never traded on that. That experience. Wow. I can't even imagine how anyone would ever suspect Jimmy Stewart to be involved in anything that would promote communism.
Right. In fact, I think we've talked before, there was a famous movie about the FBI.
Well, there's it's the FBI Story is the name of the movie, and that was made a few years later, I think in 1959 or so. Where Hoover basically wouldn't let the movie be made unless Jimmy Stewart played the lead character in the movie, who I think it kind of the FBI, the history of the FBI is kind of told through this one agent's viewpoint, and it's Jimmy Stewart, so. I'd really love to know the backstory of who put it in Hoover's ear that this was communist propaganda.
And, going back to December 1946, those FBI agents inside the Globe Theater, they actually report back to Hoover what they thought the film was about.
Okay. What did they say? What were their write-ups about?
Well, a lot of that is still classified. A lot of it.
Come on, give me a break.
A lot of it will be redacted.
Yeah.
But there is
that is lunacy that is redacted.
There's like a memo in 1949 that just says... It's a list of motion picture that disclose communist propaganda.
Okay.
And It's a Wonderful Life is in that list.
That is not
of that 1949 memo.
The only thing I can think is that maybe the screenwriter, the producer, somebody on that film might have had some kind of communist ties or alleged communist ties, and that just got lumped in that way. But the theme of that movie is timeless human values. It has nothing to do with anything political at all.
So it's probably, like we've talked about, it's probably one of the best Christmas movies ever made.
Oh Lord, yes.
And now
one of the best movies ever made. Forget Christmas,
And now it's now that we know that it survived an FBI oversight. It survived Cold War paranoia.
Yeah.
And Hollywood politics.
Yeah.
And it just really.
Well, this is something that I'm actually going to put on my homework list, and maybe some of our listeners too can maybe look this up and comment. But my bet is on that there was some person in the crew in the production of the movie that might have had gone to a communist meeting or something, and that
and that's why Hoover thought that.
Yeah, and the thought being that since this person's involved in it, that maybe they're trying to put out propaganda through this movie.
But it is kind of weird now to look back that the copyright wasn't renewed, and it just went from a not much talked about film to today it's a legend.
Well, it was that when that copyright expired and TV stations could play that for free without having to pay any royalties, or copyright usage. Hey, if they can do something for free, they're going to do it.
Exactly.
And so it just played every Christmas, almost nonstop, and it still does to this day on certain stations. I know they'll play it for 24 hours or so forth. I don't remember when I first saw the movie, but that's how it kind of got in. It wasn't a big deal at the time for whatever reason. It just the public just didn't. It just didn't make a splash with the public at the time. But boy, it sure did. In those reruns and years later.
That's the magic of that film, and that's why I put it here in our Crimemas episodes. It's history, mystery, and a dash of holiday cheer.
Exactly. That's a great one.
Now, before we wrap it up here, I'll try to connect it now with Texas.
Okay, yeah, because we're the Texas Crime Travelers.
So in 1998, a musical stage production of the film It's a Wonderful Life, the musical, premiered in Dallas, Texas. And it's an annual Christmas show that ran at a theater there at the Majestic Theater for several years.
Okay.
So it's even proof that in Texas, George Bailey's story found a home on stage.
Absolutely. I mean, come on. There's nothing communist about it.
I don't know. Now, earlier in this episode, I told you about that guy that offered us those steaks in the park that night.
Yes.
So I'm ready to cash in my rain check on that. So if you're hearing that podcast and you were that guy that we babysat that night, please reach out to us. And
take that steak.
I'll take that steak now. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And as a listener, hit that subscribe or follow button.
Yes, absolutely. Give us your questions and comments and your feedback. We love to hear it.
And if you enjoyed this Crimemas episode, share it with your friends.
This has been the Back in Crime podcast presented by Texas Crime Travelers Todd Hiles and Stewart Fillmore. We are the executive producers. Grace Hiles is the producer and director. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and our YouTube channel at Texas Crime Travelers.